Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the public, members of the planning board, and our staff, as well as other professionals present for this meeting. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 28th, 2021, 6:30 p.m. Zoom virtual meeting of the Cohasset Planning Board. The agenda was posted, and if there's any need for the agenda to be made available to somebody, please go to the town website where it's posted before the meetings. I'd like to do a roll call, beginning with Clark Brewer.
Clark Brewer, here.
Tom Callahan.
Tom Callahan here.
Paul Caleri.
Paul Caleri here.
Paul Grady.
Paul Grady here.
Amy Glassmeyer here. All right, we have everyone accounted for. We have two major items. Eric Potter is Eric here?
No, he is not.
No, that's what I was told. We have two items of business. One is an AR application. The second is a discussion of 124 Elm Street easement plan review and status update from CHI LLC. So I'd like to begin with the A&R application and ask if the applicant is present.
Madam Chair, we have James Garfield here from Morse Engineering on behalf of the applicant.
Will Mr. Morrison be the only individual speaking to us this evening?
Mr. Garfield will be.
Oh, sorry, Garfield.
Yep.
Yes, it appears he's the only person here in the attendees for this application.
All right.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. So, Mr. Garfield, before you begin your presentation, would you please identify yourself and describe who you are, what you do?
Sure. For the record, my name is James Garfield. I'm an engineer at Morse Engineering. And I'm here representing the applicant for this A&R application tonight.
All right. Do you wish to have anything put up on the screen for everyone to see?
Sure, I can share the screen, right? Hold on one second. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there some way for you to enlarge that, please?
To enlarge it?
Yes. You've got the scaleless up there that you should be able to make the image
Sure.
larger.
The only thing I'm worried about is right now I kind of am at the boundary of the property, so I don't want to zoom in too much further.
All right, so let's see if you're going to speak about any of those little tiny numbers, you may wish to read them out so that we are clear about what they say.
Well,
Sure.
he could
No
make
problem.
an introduction and talk about the property generally and then zoom in
Yeah.
as would be appropriate as a part of his presentation.
Sure.
Please begin.
Sure. All right. Yeah. So again, we're here tonight for an A&R for 7 Marion Way, and what we're proposing to do is essentially cut 7 Marion Way into 2 pieces, which you can see here as Lot 3 and Lot 4. And so Lot 4 is going to keep the existing house on it, and it's going to still be a fully compliant lot in regards to Cohasset zoning requirements. Lot 3, on the other hand, is going to be a unbuildable lot, and it is going to be conveyed to the property owner to the rear, Steve Yorkland. Should be noted that the land court has reviewed this plan, and they have found it to comply. So with that, I will leave it to you guys for some questions.
Could you be a little bit more specific on the description of the site? There's a number of features on this site that I think are relevant for us to understand. So a little bit more elaborate presentation to begin would be very helpful.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, the property lines are outlined here in bold. The building is centered on the lot shown here. Chief Justice Cushing Highway is down at the bottom of the page, and Marion Way, the private way, is to the left of the lot, partially within. And there is a wetland towards the rear of what's going to be Lot 4 and partially onto Lot 3. Is that an accurate description, what you were looking for?
So explain again the lines between these two, because what you just described would make me think that I'd like you to be more specific about the lines that you're describing. So it says former lot line to be abandoned. Are you saying that lot
Sure.
or in its entirety is going to be considered the lot with the house in the middle of it?
So I can kind of explain that. This being land court, a land court property, it was originally two parcels, lot 1 and lot 2, and that's what the former lot line to be abandoned delineated. Being land court, it was the same owner who owned both of those. And now it being land court, that is why these lots are lot 3 and 4 now. Seeing as they kind of, just go to that next number when they have a new plan in front of them. So yeah, this former lot line, that was lot 1 and 2, which is, basically lot 3 and 4 now. That's the lot currently. And we're dividing this line right here to create this triangle lot 3, which will be conveyed to this abutter to the rear. Does that make sense?
And this is Highway Business District, right? Highway Business Zoning.
This is highway business zoning, correct?
And I'm not looking at the zoning table, but do we have is this lot conforming to zoning
So lot 4
by area and setbacks?
Yes, so lot 4 is going to remain conforming. We're conforming to lot area, frontage, lot width, and actually the front side and rear setbacks as well. Lot 3, on the other hand, is not buildable. That's just being conveyed to the abutter to the rear.
Usually you guys put not a buildable lot on lots that aren't buildable.
So under general notes, number 10, lot 3 is not a buildable lot, is actually specified on the plan. Shown right here.
So can you give us some idea of what the intention is in making this change?
I don't have that information in front of me currently. I can get that for you if you need it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, lot 3 is an odd shape and an odd size. And regardless of what we do in the end, that lot is not going to have frontage. Are you clear about that?
Yep.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Mr. Greg Morse of Morse Engineering has also joined us. I just wanted to announce that.
Thank you. Can you describe your understanding of what Marion Way is?
Greg, are you on the call right now?
I am. This is Greg Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering. Marion Way is a private way. Marion Way right now provides access to properties on the left-hand side of Marion Way. As you go up it, it provides access to number 7, which is the subject property. It also provides access to approximately a 1-acre property at the back, at the end of Marion Way. The purpose of this plan is to take that triangle, which is shown as lot 3, it's about 4,000 square feet, and convey it to that neighbor out back. That neighbor out back has used a portion of that land historically and has come to an agreement with the property owner at number 7 that they would take ownership of that piece. It's not a buildable lot in and of itself. It leaves lot number 4, which is the existing house, in full compliance with your zoning bylaw.
So you guys are going to come back with another A&R for that one?
No, there's no further division of land here. Lot 3 gets sold to the owner out back. There's not another A&R required because the land out back is just simply recorded land at the registry versus this is a land court land. So that lot 3 property line will become registered with the land court, but it would be in common ownership and would merge effectively.
Essentially if you have land court land and registered land, does it automatically merge?
No.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, Tom, what was that?
No, never mind. I spoke too soon.
Because they're
Mer-
kind of
merger-
different buckets, right?
Yeah, but merger has nothing to do with one being registered and one not being registered.
Okay, Tom Callahan, you have your hand
No,
up.
I'm just curious as what becomes now of the lot at 15 Marion Way by adding this 4,000 square foot triangle? Are we in line to see something be done back there once this is added?
No,
If you know, you might not know.
I'm not aware of any intentions to do anything at the end of Marion Way.
So the transfer of the property called Lot 3 now, the owner realizes that that property does not have frontage. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. And the land court has reviewed that and signed off on that as well.
And does it at the same time acknowledge that there is not a turn radius sufficient for safety vehicles to go up and down Marion Way, given its dimensions?
Yes, it's a private way.
I'm curious why you think it doesn't have frontage, Ann.
Because you don't have frontage on a private way.
Well, you could have
Yeah,
frontage
you
on a
do.
private way,
Yeah, you
but this
can.
doesn't have frontage on a private way. It's got an easement. The private way is just an easement that goes across 2-3 lots now.
It still is a way that provides access to the lots. It's a way that has utilities in it. It's a way that's been in existence.
Does it
So-
predate zoning?
I believe it does. I believe it dates back to the 20s.
Is that documented somewhere?
But we're expanding, and actually lot 3 doesn't have any frontage on anything. It has an easement access, but not frontage. So it certainly wouldn't be a buildable lot. And then the fact that you went to land court. I'm just wondering why you wouldn't go to land court to join whatever land is in the back with lot 3.
Because the land in the back isn't in the land court. The land over here, the only land that's in land court is the property that's number 7 Marion. Number 15 Marion isn't with the land court. It's simply registered or recorded land at the registry.
Yeah, but if you're going to modify a land court plan to separate lot 3 from lot 4, you could use a land court plan to combine lot 3 with the land in the back. I mean, it's not like it's in a different county or anything.
No, you couldn't.
But that's Bjorklund's call. Bjorklund could choose to do that later on if he wants, Clark, but he doesn't have to.
Yeah, but registered land doesn't have to be registered land forever.
No, he can choose in the future to unregister lot 3, or he can choose to register all of his land if he
That makes
wants.
sense.
However,
If he wants to combine it.
He also can keep it as one parcel that's registered and one parcel that's not registered. I'm just curious. I know that lot 3 is a triangle, isn't buildable by itself. I just wonder, I'm just concerned about what happens if that small 4,000 square foot area, takes us over a tipping point that then 15 becomes subdividable. That's my concern, but that's for Mr. Bjorklund to decide, not this owner. And so I'm not going to get an answer, and I can't get an answer right now, but that's my concern.
Yeah, that's number 15. I'm not aware of any intention to do anything there. That already has buildings on it at number 15.
Yeah.
This addition of lot 3 to it doesn't really add any significant benefit for my quick review here. I think it's an area that's always been on the Bjorklund side of the wetland that he's utilized in the past. He was friendly with the family that owned number 7 Marion Road, and they always had an intention to give him that piece of land before they conveyed this property. So that was the purpose. It's on his side of the wetland that's out there. It's not
Yeah.
usable by the house number 7. So that's why he is acquiring it.
Okay, so the standard disclaimer, this is the above endorsement is not a determination as to conforming with zoning regulations. So, I don't know if there's much to talk about here.
Tom Callahan, do you have any comments?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'll take that down. I'm just reading the Q&A that's there. We have a Q&A comments from the public, so.
Did we get anything from council, Lauren, on this particular A&R?
We have council present. Cindy Amara from Murphy, Hesse, Chimney and Lehane is here.
Okay. Yeah, did they look at this before our meeting and have any comments for the planning board?
I'll let Ms. Amara address this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we've looked at this briefly. I have a few questions. I do believe that you have to look at this A&R in terms of what the A&R is doing in and of itself without regard to what it may or may not do with
In the future?
with the Bjorklund property. That can't really enter into your determination. I am a little bit curious as to the proof of the existence of the way and when it came into effect. I don't see any documentation to that effect, even though Mr. Morris has told us that is the case. I just would like to see some sort of confirmation. And he keeps referring to the land court having looked at this, and I'm just curious as to where that documentation is. But those are curiosity questions I have about.
Well, usually land court's very thorough, and if there was a submission to land court, you know, why wouldn't that be submitted as a part of the package for information only?
That's a question.
Yeah, can I just say, I'm looking at the land court plan, the original one for this house. It was done in 1959. That's just when somebody decided to create this as registered land. It doesn't tell us at all whether Marion Way pre-existed 1959.
That 59 is after
After
zoning.
zoning. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and all that means is that in 1959 is when somebody decided to create this as registered land, and that's when the plan that divided it into lots 1 and 2 was created. But Marion Way could have existed as unregistered land prior to that 1959. That I don't know. And, you know, I asked the question before this meeting started about whether we had rules and regulations about what to submit for an A&R. And I'm dismayed at the real lack of information that we get on a lot of them, and in particular this one. There's no history, no context here for us to evaluate Marion Way at all.
I agree.
If I may.
Morris, and then Cindy Amara, but Greg Morris first.
Yes. So this is taking a piece of property and dividing it, and there's only one lot here. Lot 4 is a buildable lot. Lot 4 has an existing house on it. The frontage for Lot 4, while it has an address of Marion Way, meets the zoning frontage requirements on Chief Justice Cushing Highway, which is a road that meets all requirements for A&R endorsement. The parcel that's being created here, if this was not registered land with the land court, I would have called Lot 3 a parcel. A parcel is a non-buildable piece of land. The land court, though, does not call pieces of land parcels. They divide their land court plans up into lots. It does not mean that the lot is a building lot. It does not mean it's a lot that complies with frontage, but they call them lots. And so the land court specifically wanted that Lot 3 called Lot 3. If this was not registered with the land court, I would have called it a parcel. But Lot 4, which is a buildable lot, has all of its frontage off of CJC Highway.
There's no legal distinction between a parcel and a lot. So I don't know what that was all about.
Okay, just a minute. Cindy Amara.
I'm just you know, I've only had the benefit of looking at this since late this afternoon. And, you know, I probably would have had more questions and would have reached out to Greg in advance to see what he could do to answer some of these questions. But I'm sitting here and I'm struggling with the references to that this is that the land court's in favor of this or is approved of this, and I don't see any documentation. I'm just curious as to proof that Marion Way can be the frontage for lot 3. And I'm not saying it can't be. I'm just struggling with whether we have information before us that shows it.
You know, unless there's some documentation, what I see here doesn't look like lot 3 has any frontage at all. It has access through a way, but it has frontage on another lot, not a
Right.
way. It has access via this private way, but not frontage. It's a landlocked lot they're creating.
It's a lot that it's not, it's a piece of property that has access though.
I guess my question is, I don't feel that I know enough to agree or disagree with you, Greg. I'm just saying if you could provide some information about what the land court has said about this, or when Marion Way came into existence, I would find that helpful.
Yeah, just
Absolutely.
the land court filing or the results of the land court would also be useful.
In addition, while we're making comments about the file as a whole, typically it would be helpful that, you know, you've got a selective picture here, but we do have a piece of property that's attached to this, you know, and I guess I would call it northeast, and knowing, you know, what's on that piece of property, structures, et cetera, helps us make decisions, also informs us of the land use which is being developed in town.
So number 15 Marion Way is not part of this application at all. There are structures, there's several structures built on it. There's no proposal to change those structures, but it is not part of this application whatsoever.
Right, but if you look at how the ZBA operates, they operate with full pictures so that they see context. I think that's a good idea. But in the meantime, it sounds like we have a couple of things that we don't have information on that we would prefer to have. And our option would be to ask you to provide us with that information and come back.
And they need to provide an extension too, because there's a statutory limit. We don't want to give constructive approval because the time's run out.
Correct.
I mean, the proof of whether Marion Way existed requires you to do a title search on this property prior to 1959. The land court got involved with this property for the first time in 1959, but something was there before that. And the question was Marion Way before that?
So if we're labeling lot 3 as a non-buildable lot, we have to show that we have vital access to what is a buildable lot, which is lot 4, which is taking all of its frontage off of a state highway.
Well,
It
the
complies with
access
zoning.
for lot 4 is simply this
110
way,
feet.
but it's like a driveway, right? It's a driveway. It services one house.
It services,
It's a dirt road.
it's a dirt road, but it services at least 4 buildings between this property 15 and the property directly across the street. But access is off of 3A. You have 110 feet of frontage. Paved frontage with utilities.
Lot 3 does not have that frontage.
Correct, and we're saying that lot 3 is not buildable for that very fact.
Cindy, would it help us to have a full package of information? If so, it seems we need to ask for that.
I would feel more comfortable knowing the history of when Marion Way came to be. I understand you're wanting a full package for purposes of seeing lot 3 in relationship to lot 2, or not 4, the other side. However, I don't think the relationship of lot 3 to the Jorkland property is really relevant to your determination on whether an A&R is appropriate for lot 3.
Yeah.
I believe that it is labeled non-buildable because it is non-buildable, but I would still like to see that it meets the A&R requirements. And I mean, that shouldn't be too difficult a proof, but I just don't see it here. So I can't sit here and tell you that it definitely meets that. I can't sit here and tell you it doesn't, but.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, would somebody like to make a suggestion about what we do from here?
I'm looking at the Registry of Deeds website right now, which includes a plan, which is a layout of Marion Way. The plan is referenced on our A&R plan under General Note number 3. It's plan number 590 of 1947. So this Marion Way predates the establishment of subdivision control and zoning in the town of Cohasset. I can provide a copy of that
No,
plan.
but-
It is referenced on the A&R.
What was the plan?
It's
again?
the plan reference is plan number 590 of 1947.
Greg, I think it would be helpful if you could provide that plan so the board could have some comfort in that, yep, that's right. That's what
Hold
it is.
on, hold on.
I can do a screen share of it in just a sec.
No.
No,
I'm
we
not-
want to have
I'm
it
looking-
presented to us as part of our files.
I can email it to you and deliver a hard copy as well.
He's correct. There's a plan from 1947.
And it shows Morse Way,
It,
Marion Way.
it shows Marion Way. This particular property is 7 Marion. It shows it divided in roughly it looks like the same property line that was in the land court plan that was to come in 1959.
Okay.
It was called Lot 4 and Lot 5 on this 1947 plan, but the property line between those two seems to be the same that the land court put in 1959. The other side of the street was 2 separate lots, and then the end of the street was one big lot as it is today. So Marion Way was laid out here in this plan in 47. So that answers that question. Thank you, Greg, for pointing it out that quickly.
You're welcome. If I had known sooner, I would have provided that sooner.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to my other comment, maybe we'll refine some rules and regulations about this, but, the more information, the better. And then a scanned plan, a scanned application that doesn't tell much about what's going on and why and history is really not helpful to us, and particularly if an applicant isn't coming to the meeting to provide that context, so.
Understood.
Excuse me, could I just make a comment? I did indicate actually to Mr. Bjorklund, who contacted me about this application, that the board would be looking for that information, but I do agree with Mr. Callahan that it would be helpful to have this in more elaborately stated in our rules and regulations. So I'd like to follow up on that point as we discuss this later on our agenda.
I would add, I just sent a copy of the Marion Road plan to the town planner, so you do have that in your record at this point.
Thank you.
And so that plan in 1947 does show that at the end of it, it becomes a small traffic circle. And then there's a small driveway that extends into what is now Mr. Bjorklund's land. But this current plan that we have before us tonight, shows Marion Way maybe a little askew, I don't know, but because compared to the 49 one, but pretty much the same layout that's showing in 1947. So that, I'm satisfied that lot 3 is on a way at this point that pre-exists. So So, I mean, unless the board objects to, wants some more information to put in the record, I would make a motion that we approve it.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote. Clark Brewer,
Clark Brewer, aye.
Paul L. Caleri,
Paul Caleri, aye.
Tom Callahan,
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye. In the future, it will be great to work with you, Greg, to develop a package that is always presented to us in a consistent way so we can zip through these things quickly. We'll appreciate that.
Glad to provide.
My vote is a no, right, Amy? Since you didn't. keep me?
Sorry, Paul, sorry, I couldn't see you.
And I'll
at all.
I'd rather see some more information, so I'll say no on that.
Say that again?
I'd like to see more information submitted, a whole package submitted, so I'll say no to that.
All right, so the vote then is 4-1 in favor of
Endorsement.
endorsement.
Thank you very much.
All right,
I'm going to promote the next, Mr. McGoldrick and Mr. Lubitz are here on behalf of CrossFit Hospitality Partners to discuss the next agenda item.
all right, thank you. So we'll be discussing 124 Elm Street easement plan review and status update from CHI LLC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Ted Lubitz with Hospitality Partners. I'm here with my partner, George McGoldrick, as well. And it's nice to see all of you. It's been quite some time. And wanted to provide, as we pledged to you, an update on where our process stands, and also specifically talk about something that we talked about in the past with you all, and which is the required easements for the project that was voted on a few months ago, and the ability for the select board to enter into crossing with the property owner of 87 and 124 Elm. Would you like me to start with that or provide a general project update?
I think a project update first, and then we can go into the business of the evening.
Okay, great. So since we were last in front of you, we received unanimous approval from Concom as well as from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So with respect to our local process, we are getting close to what we hope is a finish line with the select board on the easements, which we plan to go in front of them on May 11th. So that will be the next sort of town meeting process. With respect to the additional permits that are required for the project, which we've discussed with you in the past, are the MIPA, which is an environmental notification form, and then our Chapter 91 license. So since, again, we last met with you, we have filed with MIPA for our environmental notification form, and currently in the public review and public comment period. And then the decision is expected to be rendered on May 24th. Once we receive what we hope is a favorable decision from MIPA, then we will be filing with DEP Waterways for the Chapter 91 permit, which we are unsure of the time frame that it will take, but we are expecting anywhere from 4 to 12 months for that process. And that is solely with the state and the Commonwealth.
Do we have to come up with the proposed management plan before you go there, or is that after the process?
My understanding is that's after the process, but a draft management plan is part of that process.
Okay.
So that is where we stand on general permitting. Are there any other questions with respect to that we could answer for you.
Yeah, how goes the hunt for a site for affordable housing?
That was the next topic I'd like to update everybody on. Are there any questions on the permitting sequence though, before I move to that?
Doesn't appear so.
Okay. So again, as we committed to you, we want to provide you regular updates about the affordable housing plan. As we agreed, we have been working and continued discussions with the Affordable Housing Trust and the steering committee, revisiting the priorities that were reviewed many months ago, essentially to deliver more units than the 3 that we're required to do, and try to deliver those units quicker than what otherwise might be, a 2 to 4 year process, of going to build new housing. So we have been out there, George and I, trying to identify sites that could work, and we expect to be in a position to advance the discussion in the next probably 30 to 60 days with the planning board. And we plan on being in front of you with a very concrete plan that we can discuss with you, that we expect will be endorsed by the housing committees that we just discussed and satisfies the priorities.
Thank you. Paul Grady?
Any proposed locations?
Not at this
Can
time.
you share with us at this minute?
Not at this time, but we will absolutely be doing that. And I would say we're close to being able to identify a site.
Thank you. Mr. McGoldrick?
Madam Chair, in terms of the site locations, the Housing Trust and the Steering Committee have been directing us towards either the downtown area or transportation access. So we've eliminated some sites that are far off of the beaten track, as you might call it, and we're looking at things that are walkable downtown or close to transportation.
Great. Thank you. Other comments from board members about the affordable housing update? All right, thank you. Then proceed, Mr. Lubitz.
Okay, so with respect to the easements, and Lauren, perhaps if I could share the screen, if you think that would be helpful, I can pull up the plan.
Certainly, you should have capabilities to share.
Okay.
And then Ms. Glassmeyer, if I could just make a comment, I'm sorry, I forgot to dismiss Ms. Amaro. We had asked her to be here for our A&R application, but we did not expect her to stay all evening with us. So I just wanted to let her know that we appreciate your time, and don't feel like you have to stay with us all night. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, so what I pulled up here is a plan that was prepared by our engineer, Caponaro Consulting, which is essentially the site plan that we've seen and was approved, showing the access into the site at 124 here. And again, this is the main area of topic 4 discussion of these cross easements. And then there is an area over here that the town will need an easement from us for its sewer line. So this is also shown on the plan. And as just a general reminder, it's not really shown on this plan, but there are, the way this currently operates right now, as the sort of Burns parking lot and then our parking for some of the hotel, there's this very irregular property line here as it exists. So, actually, there's no easements in place. There's no ability, there's no approval rights for us to be on town property or town property to be on our property. So this is really the mechanism to clean it up, a lot of what exists today. So as we're not making changes to this parking area, what we're essentially seeking is access easements to enter over town property, which this is, and then be able to drive into the buildings. What we also will be granting to the town as part of this are access, maintenance, and use easements for the town infrastructure, which comes onto our property here and then comes through here and daylights into the harbor. And those are the various essential tide gates for the town. that essentially protect the James Brook area from flooding. They're large culverts that run underneath here. So many years ago, they were put on our property, but never obtained easements. As you can see in here, and I'll zoom in, with respect to general square footages that we're talking about. So the easement to the town from us, so essentially this area, which we would be granting an easement over the entire area for use, access, for those, for that town infrastructure, and then also for parking, is 3,002 square feet. The easement to the town, sorry, to us from the town, which is this area in yellow, is 3,119 square feet. And then as part of this, we'll also be requesting a temporary construction easement and adding permanent landscape, which is again part of the approved site plan in this area. And then the easement to the town from us for the sewer easement is another 3,000 square feet. And that is for this area here. So again, all of this is consistent with what was approved, and it's just put in a more formal plan for the select board to review. And also, Lauren, I don't know if you want to provide an update, but our counsel, Adam Brodsky, is working with town council attorney Dorenzis on this. And actually, we have the obligation to be doing the drafting of this per the town warrant article that was voted on. So this document has been submitted to town council for review, and our attorney is working on the actual cross easement sort of agreement that would be between us and the town to memorialize this. And also, you know, it is our intent to also have a maintenance easement that we would be responsible for the maintenance of this area as well, aside from the town infrastructure.
Ed, a quick question on the graphic.
Yes.
The area to the east of your temporary construction easement for landscape, there's half of your drive aisle looks like it's town property, but you're not looking for an easement from the town for it. Half of the drive aisle into your building is on your property.
You know, that is a very good.
It seems like you'd be wanting to get increase your hatch, your yellow hatch, to go right up to the face of your building, so you have access in and out.
You are 100% correct on that. That is an oversight on our part. So okay. I apologize for that, but thank you for bringing that to our attention.
No worries.
That was not intentional.
And I'm sure the selectmen will ask the same question, but I don't remember. I think I know the answer, but the parking spots on the north side that are in this purple shading, yep. Those are all your parking spots. They're on your property. You're just you're going to have signage that this is for parking for, you know, your property only.
The intent is really for public use parking. So okay. We're not going to be limiting it to, you know, guests of our project, but
you know, that's great. I mean, if it becomes an issue or a problem and we don't pick up enough spots out on the street, then you know, I guess you could always add signage later.
Yeah, I mean, we all know how that's been operating back there, you know, as a big public parking, and we don't want to change that. So
right, people think it's the town. Actually, half the people think it belongs to the town, half the people think it belongs to the hotel. Nobody really knows.
Yeah, so
continuing that fine tradition. But yeah, you might want to, before you go before the selectmen, add some hatch.
Yes, no, that's a very good point. Thank you.
Yep.
Lauren Lind.
Thank you. I'll just add that just to confirm what Mr. Lubitz said, I have been in communication with attorney Paul Dorenzis on behalf of the select board. He's reviewing this information before it goes to the select board. I think it's been identified for one of their May meetings. I've provided him with the certified vote from the town clerk that came from the annual town meeting regarding this reciprocal easement language. I provided him also with the information this plan that you'll see, although I'm sure we'll get him a revised copy based on the discussion tonight. And I also sent him the planning board decision with the sections highlighted and flagged where it discusses this area and these easements. So I just wanted to let you know that I've been in communication with him and I've provided him all of the information on behalf of the planning board.
Is there any further information from the applicant, or is this the conclusion of the update?
That is all we have to present, but if there are other questions, we are available to answer them.
I'm good.
Madam Chair, if I may.
You may.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good to see you guys. Welcome back to our board. Hope everyone's doing well and staying healthy. So Ted, I just curious about the on the west side of the property, that bluish colored.
Yep.
You referred to that as like 3,000 square feet. It looks a lot smaller than the other shaded parts on the east side of the development. I just wanted you guys to double check and make sure that was, and I imagine it's probably a 10-foot wide easement for the sewer, or maybe 15, but it says on the bottom of the plan there that it's 3,000. I just wanted you guys to.
Well, when I go back to John about the missing the access easement to our garage, I will double check that to make sure.
That's all. I just wanted to bring it to your attention while you were doing some other clarifications on it, but.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
It looks good, and thanks for cleaning up some of the town's mess that has been going on for years with those utilities underneath there in that culvert.
All right, thank you, Paul. Tom Callahan?
Yeah, I think this is all great about the easement, and good catch, Clark, on the boundaries of it. The other part of this permit that the selectmen had to deal with is over, you probably can't see my arrow, but over in the public amenity areas in the harbor walk, we have to come up with some covenants. I'm wondering, has that discussion started, or are we waiting? Is that going to be part of the Chapter 91 management plan? Has that even been started yet? Maybe it's too soon.
It has not been started, but my understanding is that is part of the Chapter 1 process and we memorialize in the management plan.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Other comments or questions by members of the board? All right, then. Thank you very much for coming to visit with us, and we expect we'll see you about every 4 months. Hope you stay healthy and that the weather's good and you can get construction going.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is ZBA recommendations. Lauren, I'm going to turn this to you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to turn this to Jen Oram, and then she can introduce the order of which we'll be reviewing and promote the appropriate candidates. Thank you.
Hello. So I think we'll start with 61 Elm Street. I see that John Teriyaki is in the attendees, and he will review this as a extension of the footprint and the floodplain. Just by way of background for people who don't recall that we in the past have done zoning application reviews. We basically stopped during COVID because we had such heavy agendas, and this is a recommendation that you're allowed to do it via 40A. We used to do it all the time. We won't bring you appeals, we won't bring you docs, but we'll bring you things in the floodplain and structures. So without further ado, we'll go with the first one, which is 61 Elm.
Jen, can you explain a little bit more about what we're doing? What is this? I know it's a look-see rather than a chat, but yeah. Since we haven't done a chat in a long time, can you contextualize the chat experience?
Right. So essentially, they're going to review what the application is that they're going to bring to the next zoning board meeting, which is this coming Tuesday. They're going to review what the application is for, what relief they're seeking, and then you'll listen to that and you'll determine, you'll listen to it, ask questions, and then the board just makes a recommendation that we then put in writing and send over to the zoning board. The recommendation is non-binding. It's just more informational, particularly if you have any questions, concerns, that will be notated in the recommendation that I will draft and send to the ZBA. So it's really more to continue opening up the transparency. We did used to do them quite a bit. Then we had a couple slow years, and then now we're back at it.
All right, thank you. And we can anticipate that when we have time, we'll be doing these as they present themselves.
Right, as long as it's basically always been a timing issue, depending on when our meetings are, when we have the applications and when the zoning board. So there's usually a lot of moving parts to make sure it can happen. But we have a better, more set schedule with the planning board now in the last couple of years that it should be easier to try to make sure it happens.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So John, if you want to go ahead and review what you're coming for.
Sure. Good evening, John Teriyaki Architectural Design. We're the architects for this addition proposed for 61 Elm Street. I'm going to share my screen to share you, without taking too much of your time, just a brief overview of the project. So this is the property. It's a very long and narrow lot on Elm Street. And the rear portion, actually, possibly the entire portion, is in the floodplain. So any new construction that needs to happen in the floodplain needs the ZBA special permit, in this case under section 9.11. So that's the reason why this project is headed to the ZBA. So there are no dimensional special permits requested. It's not a section 8 application, but a section 9 floodplain application. And just to show you some photographs of the existing house. This is the front facing Elm Street. I'm sorry, this picture right here, the right side facing the driveway. And then here's the rear of the house where we are. There's an existing deck that's quite extensive. We are basically removing that deck and its footings and adding a new deck and then a small addition in this inside corner, essentially, all of it in the floodplain. Floor plan of the existing first floor showing the extent of this deck. This total area of this deck is about 538 square feet. And then we provided the detailed footing cross-section areas, what the ZBA calls the on-the-ground area of the footings in the application. I won't go into those details. And the proposed foundation plan of the addition is essentially a crawl space foundation filling that inside corner, and then in a more rectangular deck, a new deck facing the back. And all of this complies dimensionally with the setbacks and height requirements. Again, it's just the fact that it's happening in the floodplain. The net increase of on the ground area is about 31 well, the total area is 31.3 square feet because in this case, the on-the-ground area is only the area of the foundation wall itself, since there's no basement or slab. And then this is all open as well. There's no basement. Again, just the floor plan showing the compliance on the side lot line. This is in the RA district. So a 10-foot setback requirement to a one-story structure, 15 feet to a two-story structure. And this addition has a stepped second story that complies as well. Just a quick 3D rendering showing the addition and the existing image below it. We're also adding a small landing and steps and a small covered porch with a new door accessing the sunroom of the house. So that's essentially the project. And we will present this to the zoning board and review the foundation and footing structure of the proposed and the existing and present the special permit to them.
Excuse me, John, that crawl space area that has foundation and it has the smart vent, which allows water to if it's in there, to drain out, that has a concrete slab that's above the finished grade. So any water that gets in there can drain out. That's a question.
Right. So whether that's going to have like a rat slab in it or crushed stone is open open the
Yeah.
question, but these vents will be placed accordingly. I think that they have to be within 12 inches of the grade. So yeah, that's the intent, is that flood waters can come in and out.
Right. Especially out if,
Exactly, yeah.
okay, that sounds good. That's the only thing I wanted to ask about.
Okay.
I also see that Paul Caleri had his hand raised.
I did. I was going to ask about that little mudroom with the stairs, but now that John clicked back to that previous slide that we're on now, yeah, I see it. I see it indicated there, and it's all still within the setbacks. I think it looks great.
Yeah, thanks. And actually, this is a real detail, but a tiny portion of that encroaches into the setback, which is allowed for covered stoops and steps as a allowed projection. We thought that it was important to align that perfectly with this wall, which is why we let that 3 or 4 inches of that corner encroach. But it still complies with the current zoning.
Thank you.
Comments from other planning board members? All right then, Jen, in normal times, how do we conclude a conversation like this?
So then you would actually take a vote for a recommendation that the zoning board would approve or not approve it. So you would just take a regular vote saying we recommend that the zoning board approve this project, and then it'll be drafted. Say that. Or disapprove.
Okay, so can I get somebody to make a motion for that?
Motion to recommend approval of the proposed work in the floodplain.
Can I get a second?
Second,
A roll call vote, Clark Brewer,
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan,
Tom Callahan, aye.
Paul Caleri,
Paul Caleri, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good
It's been
evening.
approved,
Thank you.
recommended.
And so the next project that we're bringing forward for review is 30 Whitehead Road. This is Mr. Bodell is the landowner. He is representing himself, Mr. James Bodell. This one is interesting. It's something that I ended up advertising as a variance and a special permit because he is requesting to build a shed within the front setback, which would be, in my interpretation, creating a nonconformity. So this will be for the zoning board to review, but Mr. Bodell can present and explain the uniqueness that might bring for a variance relief. And then if not, they might determine that it's just a special permit.
So Jen, in each instance that something like this comes to us, it comes to us not just for oversight, but it does come for our endorsement. Is that correct? So in this case, you've defined the situation and we will be making an endorsement on the basis of how you defined it.
It's how it's been applied for. So it's a recommendation based on the application and what's been presented. But again, it's non-binding. The board may, the zoning board could make a determination. Not say if you said you didn't want to approve it, but the board could still approve it, the zoning board. So you're more hearing the applicant and then applying the zoning rules and what you think if it should be recommended or not. I see that Tom has a question.
Okay, Tom Callahan.
Well, I'm confused at what I'm looking at because the materials I read today, uses the word variance and it uses the word special permit. Which is it?
Well,
Can't be both. Can't be
That's
both.
correct. That's correct. But if they came in, they applied for a special permit first. But if it's determined that they need a variance, we'd have to go back and advertise because the variance is higher than a special permit in relief.
Right.
So we actually had them apply for both so that it could be determined by the zoning board what relief they will need.
Again, I mean, I'm new to this since we haven't done this since I've been on the board, but what's the point of us giving an opinion on whether a variance that variance is solely zoning board policy?
So again, we won't, it's also filed for as a special permit, which is why I brought it forward to you. If you choose to not make a recommendation, you do not have to.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it's more to give you an opportunity to see so it doesn't come back that you say, how come we didn't see it? So it's more
Okay.
opening up those conversations.
Yep, that's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so the applicant's going to now make a presentation, correct?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Bodello, do you want to turn on your camera and?
Yeah. There we go.
Hi.
Hi. Am I on?
You are.
Ready to go.
You
Okay.
are.
So again, we don't, the special variance or the special permit, we're not sure which we're gonna go with at yet. We were told by the building inspector about I think a special permit, and then we discussed a variance. What we are looking to do is build a 14 by 20-foot shed on our property. But we have run into a couple of inconsistencies. The history of the problem, let me,
Yes, if you have any imagery to share, that would be great.
yes, can you see my screen?
We can.
Oh, not until I pick one. Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I can't see a screen. I can see.
We don't have it yet. He's getting it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Bedell, if you see at the bottom of your Zoom panel, there's a green button that says share screen.
Yeah, I clicked it, but now of course my computer is saying that it doesn't want to share.
Right. So, Mr. Bodello, are you going to share the site plan? Which are you going to share? Which, because I did.
I was going to
prepare.
share the site.
Okay, I did prepare in case you didn't have it, because I know we hadn't talked about it. So let me just take a peek and see if I could get that for you.
Sorry about that. My computer is not allowing me to do it.
Is this what you're looking for?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay. I'm going to just make it a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Can everybody see?
This is his parcel.
This is his
Yes.
parcel, yes.
Yes, this is my parcel of land.
It looks
So,
big. It's 67,000 square feet.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So what we're doing is right now in the center of the screen, you can see where it says gravel driveway.
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Somebody
Off of
point-
Whitehead.
Yes, off of Whitehead.
Yeah.
So as you can see, there's that's where we're proposing the shed, and we've got another image we'll pull up in a second that will give you more detail. I couldn't edit the file and put the shed in this. This is actually my survey plan from the surveyor, and every time I added it, the file got corrupted. So I actually have another zoomed in copy that shows where the actual shed is. But this is a good place to start. As you can see, there's a heavy black line, which is my property line, which runs basically through the middle of that gravel driveway. That is my property line. My property does not go to Whitehead Road. So the history is that in the 1950s, the property was sold and the house was built. And at that time, the property abutted Whitehead Road. So that was one contiguous piece of property. In 1985, the people who built the house sold it to the previous owners from us. And at that time, before they bought it, the neighbors purchased the property, split it, where they extracted that 15-foot wide, it's 7 to 15 feet wide strip of land between Whitehead Road and my property, and then sold it to the last owners, to the previous owners. So that strip of land is now owned by someone else other than myself. So because of that, and then if you look in the back, there's a isolated vegetated wetland, and we have a 100-foot buffer from Treats Pond. So Jay, can we pull up the survey extract, which zooms in on the shed?
Let me go take a peek at what I go in it. Okay. So many buttons, hold on.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I'm just getting a little bit of a freeze. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, I'm getting a fail. Hold on. Technical difficulties, one moment. There we go.
Okay.
You can see
So
it,
this-
so
So this is a zoomed in site of that gravel driveway.
down here, there we go.
Yep. So as you can see, there's the green line, which is the 50-foot buffer for Treats Pond. The yellow line is the 100-foot buffer for Treats Pond. And the orange line is the 25-foot buffer for the elevated vegetated wetland. So as you can see, the proposed, and that's where the proposed shed is. Originally, we did not intend to come in front of the ZBA or the zoning board because we had intended to conform to the 30-foot setback. We're in residential C, which has a 30-foot front setback. Originally, we had put the shed at 30 feet from our property line. And we went in front of Conservation Commission to do that. And they did not, they were not apt to approve that. So we proposed that we would move it as much as possible out of the 25-foot setback for the vegetated wetlands, which is why the shed is where it is now. They only granted that, even as you can see, the corner is still in there and the entire shed is in the 100-foot buffer because the gravel driveway was altered at some point in the past. So it's already, it's a wetland that's already been altered. So they allowed us to do we worked with them to move the shed forward. In moving it forward, the new location was chosen in that as if we owned that strip of land. So it is still 30 feet from the road. But it is 13 feet away from my property line. So that's where we are, and that's why we're going for the variance, because we are not within the 30-foot setback from our property line, but we are 30 feet. We're trying to maintain the 30 feet from the road. So if you didn't know that that property wasn't ours, you wouldn't know that the shed was encroaching on the property line. So,
on this one, I kind of think that you haven't given us enough information to make a recommendation. It's of a technical nature. It seems like what you're asking for is to create a new nonconformance, which would be a variance, and you have to show hardship for a variance. But and you have hardship with, I think, with the wetland line implication. But I don't, I don't see any dimensions for your shed. I don't know if there's other locations that might work that Concom might be happy with. I just don't think there's enough information to make a recommendation for the planning board to make a recommendation to the ZBA for this.
well,
But
okay.
other members might have other thoughts, so I'd listen to them first.
Okay.
Tom Callahan?
Right,
You're muted.
Yep. I mean, I'm just hard pressed to find a hardship on a 67,000 square foot piece of land, that there isn't another location for this. I mean, I get it. There's a gravel driveway that pre-existed for who knows how long, and it makes some logical sense to put it there, but I'm not making the call in the ZBA though. So, but having dealt with hardship cases a lot, I just don't see it with a lot this big, that there couldn't be alternative locations for this.
Could you pull up the survey again, please?
I mean, you have
Unless
another
anyone else has a
driveway.
comment.
You have another driveway that goes to the house. I mean, could it not be located somewhere closer to the house off that driveway?
Well, the house is 48 feet from my property line right now.
Mhm.
So there's 48 feet there. I don't necessarily want to plop a shed in front of the house. Plus the 14-foot shed would only give me about 20 feet between the back of the shed and the
Yeah,
house.
I'm not suggesting in front, I mean, this is just it, because we're not the board making the decision here, so I don't know how much I should, comment or go deeply into this.
Well,
But
I mean, I can answer your questions as to why there's no other location to put the shed. And the short answer is we have registered land, and we have in the deed, we have a restriction on the left and the right on our side, the side property of 20 feet. So we're not, even though we could put a shed within 6 feet of the property line, we have a deeded restriction on that. The rest of my property, a large portion of it exists within the 50-foot buffer zone, which the Concom will not allow us to touch. They have some discretion in the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone, which they have allowed us to build in on that gravel driveway. And there's not really any other, or there really isn't any other reasonable place to put it.
There would be no other place that wouldn't require a similar variance, given that where the 100-foot buffer from Treats Pond is and where the street is and the narrow nature of the property. There is no other spot on the property that wouldn't require a variance from the zoning board in any event, or it would literally be right in front of the house and would block egress to the home. So I think that's probably the issue, is just the shape of the property.
So
mean,
I
we
would
can
just,
show you, if you pull the survey up, we can show you that, but.
no, look, I've been doing this my whole career, and I've rarely ever seen a property that justifies a variance. I think they are the exception to the rule and should be the exception to the rule. But again, I'm not making the decision. So I know the zoning board in this town is tough on variances, as it should be. But, it's just, I mean, this is different than if you were trying to build a house. The shed isn't a necessity, and it is a large piece of property. And I get it. Maybe you are that one unique case out of 100 that is entitled to a variance because of the topography of the lot. But I don't think there's enough information here tonight for us to make a recommendation on that. And again, since we're not the permit granting board, I don't know that you have to give us that level of detail. I mean, we can just take the neutral position, say here, we don't have enough information to make a recommendation.
That's what I thought too, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, it's not our decision.
So Jim would like to make a comment, and then Paul Colery.
so that is one of the reasons that we're having this discussion, is that, in my opinion, reading it, I saw it as a variance. There was discussion about a special permit. There's also, if I recall, the Concom also, I believe, has told you, Mr. Bedell, that there could be an issue if it was a variance to get that sort of relief. But does the Concom, do they think that they could offer you a variance on the location?
They did.
Okay.
I mean, we moved the shed. They sort of conceded some of the space in the wetlands and
Right.
within the 100-foot buffer.
So I mean, I don't want to take too much. I know that Paul Cleary has a question, but my recommendation is that two of the members are already saying it's absolutely fine to say that the planning board didn't feel they had enough to make a recommendation. That's the vote you can take, or that's the you can just say that, and I can write that. Mr. Bedell, just so you know, that's not binding. You're still going to go and have a full hearing before the zoning board. But I just, again, in an effort to make sure we open up these conversations, that's, where there's a special permit as part of the ad, I will still continue bringing you the things just for these conversations. So I just wanted to say that. But Madam Chair, Paul Cleary, did you want to say something? Your little hand's raised.
Yeah, my virtual hand was raised. Thank you for recognizing. I'm just curious, what's the address of this property? Again, I couldn't hear it, and it's not on agenda. It just says zoning recommendations. What was the address?
30 Whitehead.
30 Whitehead Road.
30 Whitehead. Okay, thank you. I was trying to find it on the map so I could see it also.
Okay, so it appears from this discussion that we have a sentiment of at least two board members, and I would concur with them that we don't have sufficient information to really be helpful. And what, Tom?
I want to just clarify my position. It's not so much as not having information, but it's not my place as a planning board member to give an opinion on a variance that the zoning board's gonna, I'm new to this process, so it seems to invite our interference in something we shouldn't be interfering in.
But Jen brought it to us because it could have been an either or. Is that correct, Jen?
Right, I wanted if it says special permit on it, I'm gonna bring it to you. Most cases, I'm not gonna bring you any variances. This was an and or. I didn't, there are other things in play with Concom, so we've had the conversation. It'll go to the zoning board next week, and like you said, Tom, we don't want to get involved, but I didn't want to be missed on that.
I'm a big fan because it's never happened in the past that every board know what other boards are doing. So in case your jurisdiction is involved, you know about it. So I think this is great from that point of view, but we have these people here taking their time trying to convince us of something that we have really no say on. And I don't want to be put in that position of offering an opinion where it's not warranted. That's all.
Right, and you don't have to in this case because that's the position two of you have taken, so that's fine.
Okay.
So you can take a vote to that matter, or I can just write that the board felt that they didn't have enough information. So it's up to Clark. What do you think? Do you think you want to make a?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we cannot make a recommendation based on the information that was presented.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Clark Brewer,
Aye.
Tom Callahan,
Aye.
Paul Caleri,
Aye.
Paul Grady,
Aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go dark again.
I'm back.
I do think it's useful for us to have these things, to have conversations like this so that we can eliminate some surprises and also so the board can be more informed, which I appreciate.
Yeah, but there's a difference between being informed and being asked to offer an opinion where our opinion isn't warranted.
Well, so we will have a conversation about process in just a minute and we can raise that kind of issue.
Right.
Paul Caleri.
I'm sorry. I just want to say that I don't want to make that determination prior to bringing it to you. That's why if we're going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't want to, I'm not going to make.
I completely get it.
Yeah.
Take it case by case.
Right.
Thank you. Paul Caleri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we talk for a minute again about that, or are we not allowed to talk about?
So once we're done with doing this task with Jen, then we're going to go into a set of discussions about goals for us, goals for the board for the year. And I think that would be the time if you want to talk about something that's like larger and encompassing of our practices. That's what we have the time set up for. If you want to speak specifically on this item, then go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking about, was that particular item. One, it was tough to see that plan, even with Jen's assistance. But it seemed to me like that strip of land that he was talking about, like, I guess I lost, where was their frontage on the road? And was there like, I mean, I guess it's all not really important now, but did they assume that they could cross over that person's land on that gravel driveway that exists? Because it looked to me like somebody else owned that, narrow strip of land in front of their property. But I also couldn't, that's why I was scrambling to try to see on the satellite, like where was their driveway? And I couldn't really reference it all, so.
Right. Well, my understanding is that prior to them purchasing it, that you saw where their lot line was, somebody bought that strip of land in front of their home, was essentially made their front lot line for where they want to put it, not necessarily non-conforming. I think they go back to, they said 46 feet to their home. Their home is, but I think even that's conforming because they're supposed to have a 30-foot front setback there. But where they want to put the, where they're proposing the shed is non-conforming based on the fact that they don't own to the road. Most cases, you see homes owned to the road or to the middle of the road, and they did not because of the way that somebody sold off a parcel in the past. So it's in that sense, it's a rare site, usually owned to the road. And I did send out all the plans in advance too, because that one was a very big survey to read on this side. So I'm sorry, that it wasn't very clear.
When you own to the road, it also gives you frontage sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, where's their frontage for that property on Atlantic Avenue?
Looks like it fronts on another lot.
Do they, well,
Yeah.
they have an issue if they have no frontage on a way. That's their grandfather, I guess.
I can comment or keep quiet.
Well, we're halfway in, so how about just hop through the conversation so that we can then conclude what we're curious.
So when that piece of property was extracted, we were given exclusive easement anywhere along the property by foot, motor vehicle,
just for egress.
pathway, just for egress. So we have full rights to cross that property at any point in time, anywhere along the property we wish.
Mhm.
Well, that makes a lot more sense. I was trying to figure out how you're going to get to your shed.
That's fine, but an easement doesn't provide frontage. That's a whole different issue that you're not in, it's not confronting you at the moment, but.
We do not have frontage. That
Yeah,
was
that's
taken away from
unique.
us.
That's unique.
Well, when was that, I'm surprised, like, when was that transaction made?
In
What year?
1985.
And so they made it non-conforming by doing that.
Yes, there's part of my package also shows the actual registered land plot plans where it shows in 1950 where it was quote unquote lot 14, and then in 1985 where they actually split that into lot 14 and lot 15.
Was there any explanation for why they did this?
I have inquired with the woman who did it at the time has since passed. It is the people who live across the street. I've inquired with the two sisters who own that property, and they said, well, it sounds like our mother and we don't know why she did it. So whatever the purpose was, apparently has died with her.
All right.
Well, I will see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
What an anomaly.
It's so weird. That is really weird.
I know, that is weird.
It is.
It's like she didn't want anybody to buy the property because then she cut them off from being able to access it.
I think some of it has to do with the landscaping along the road. It's very specific and it's very lovely. So it may be something like that because the neighbors are pretty particular about the landscaping.
Oh, okay. Well, now we'll have some anomaly to go check out.
I mean, I don't know when the zoning laws came into being, but maybe they were trying to force zoning laws before zoning laws existed.
No, 55, so 1955 they came in.
Yeah, but there was a major.
They were amended they made it was a major change in, is it 89 or 84?
86.
86. So there was an 86, another one in 69, another one is, yeah, so it's just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that I think that we'll never know.
All right. Well, with that, do we have another one of these doozies, Jen?
No, we're all set. No
All
more
right.
disease.
All right. So thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Bodell. And let's move on to our next item of business, which is Citizen Planner Training Collaborative Seminar Series, and then a discussion of the planning board goals. So Lauren, would you like to take it away, or Jen, either one?
Certainly, I will start off. Thank you all for your time. I just want to say tonight, for the rest of the conversation and the agenda items, I sort of want this to be an open discussion. We don't often get to do this because we have had such a high volume of applications and things that we have to attend to, that it's nice to have some time to collectively think and brainstorm about, thinking forward and how we can improve our processes. Something that's been discussed a couple of times is sort of getting formal training for the boards. And I know we've had a couple of series of training here and there. We did have A&R training with Caris North. I want to say a couple months after I started, which was, I'm coming up on 2 years here. And we also we hosted one night of Citizen Planning Training Collaborative, which I know a couple of members of our planning board as well as our zoning board attended. But something that we've been discussing is really sort of having a more formal training series. So Jen and I, along with town administration, have been looking into the feasibility of holding a series of training for the planning board and as well as any of the other land use boards that are interested in participating that would be based in Cohasset. We've been communicating with Citizen Planning Training Collaborative, which you'll hear us refer to a lot as CPTC. For those who are unfamiliar, CPTC it was actually founded in 1995. It's a collaboration between the University of Massachusetts, the Department of Housing and Community Development through the state, and a couple of groups of American planning associations, mass planning directors, things of that nature, and really with the goal to empower local land use officials to make effective and judicious decisions based on the laws that that they have to abide by. So what we're looking to do is to bring CPTC in to have specialists come and talk to the board. We're looking at a series of topics. We'd be happy to distribute the topics that are available, but some of the example courses that we thought would be helpful would be specifics about approval not required, or A&R under subdivision control law, things like updating design guidelines, there's different topics, reading a plan, things that are that we deal with so commonly. But I think a lot of the there's some of you aren't trained in your profession, but as a volunteer board, this is a role that you assume and the skills that you'll need to have. So no matter where you are on the spectrum, sometimes it's helpful to have a refresher. So we'd like to discuss with you sort of your interest, engage. This is something that we are prepared to do. We've been inquiring, but we really want your interest and buy-in to do something. I know that we've discussed sort of informally with a couple of members that there are members and boards and commissions that have required training. The planning board is not one of them. We do encourage training, but that's something that the board may wish to adopt as a policy moving forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to see if Jen has anything else to add that I may have missed about this series, and then we'll turn it back to you.
Who has required training in town?
School committee was one recent example I got.
The what?
The school
Oh,
committee.
the school. Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I
Very
would
good.
like to add is as Lauren has said, that we've been looking into this for quite some time, as it's been requested by membership boards across, but particularly land use. And training is great for everybody, including staff, membership, and I think we've been talking about it for a long time. So we reached out to the CPTC, and they are on board to work with us. We would set up a schedule and we would do it. We had some ideas of make it, in the early evening, so it would work not at dinner time, but a little bit earlier. And we would send out a schedule once we confirm it. But we really wanted to make sure that all of you were on board and would support this idea. That's really important to make it successful. And there would be, like I said, I wasn't kidding, there would be rewards and treats for everybody who does it. And but they would be on Zoom for now. And so we wanted, rewards and treats. Gonna have to everything to make us happy. So we just wanted your feedback on this idea.
So if I got it right, you're proposing that we host some of these citizen planner training workshops.
So we would be paying for them. The town of Cohasset would actually be hiring them to do these classes for us. They would be on Zoom, and we would probably be able to open it up to other areas, to other towns, but They are doing it for the town of Cohasset.
Because I've been to maybe a dozen of these over the last decade, and usually they've been in all different towns: Situate, Hingham. I think I went to one in New Bedford. But we would be paying to host or to run it, to actually have them do their thing.
The latter. They will be doing it for us. We will be.
They're gonna train us. The town is offering to pay professionals to provide us with the training so that we all have a systematic understanding of a set of topics that we deal with all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense to have like common language. The planning, every sort of profession has its own language, and understanding what some of the basic terms are will help and make our conversations deeper.
we will give you we'll have a certificate for those of you who complete all 7 courses, and Jen has offered to make baked goods for you as well.
I will make baked goods, and I will see if I can get everybody, some of these. I don't know if you can see it. But this is
whoa.
This is a Cohasset logo. It's for the Cohasset Wellness Group, which I co-chair, and I have a little stash of these babies, and I will look into, so it's a Yeti, by the way, true Yeti.
Oh, I want one of those. I'm going to take the classes. That's it.
But in all seriousness, like, we want to make it fun, but we also want people to attend, and I don't know. I think I will obviously attend all of them, and I know Lauren will too. But
So I got it. We're talking about maybe six courses, hosting 6 courses.
6 or 7.
Over a period of.
We're thinking
rest of the year?
like once a month, or we're looking for your feedback on that, because we want it to be a successful series, and we want people to participate. We don't want to, we're not going to put it on if people don't want to go.
Well, just sort of. I mean, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but once a month seems like it would be overly burdensome, but every other month doesn't to me, and maybe that's just a psychological thing.
We would also do it looking at 5 to 7. We proposed 5 to 7 on Tuesdays because we're open late on Tuesdays. A lot of, and it just seemed like a time that, so they're working on a schedule, but we can give them that feedback as well.
And this would be like 6 or 7 different topics. Each night would be a different topic.
Yes. And that's Clark's feedback is really helpful, because that's what we want to hear from you. If you think spaced out every other month is better, that's certainly something we can accommodate.
And some of these classes do count towards professional continuing ed. Paul,
yes.
you probably have continuing ed for real estate. Tom for
law, CLE law.
You do as a lawyer.
CLE credits.
I definitely have continuing ed credits, and sometimes it's hard to keep up, but
CLE is not mandatory for lawyers in this state. It is for me in New York and West Virginia, but it isn't here.
I only know about it because of New York, because of Chris.
Yeah.
He has to do his.
No, New York,
West Virginia.
Am I? Yes. I mean, it's on inactive status because I'm not using it that much anymore. The client I did it for.
No, just in case I get pulled over in West Virginia.
Get into trouble.
And it's Winnebago.
You're looking for trouble in West Virginia.
Yes, I've been.
I've been many times.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sing that John Denver song, okay?
Okay.
I'm all for further
I hate that
education.
song until I'm there.
You are.
Okay.
All right. Well, anyway, I would say go ahead with this,
Okay.
and maybe as a compromise between a month and 2 months is every 6 weeks, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Oh my God.
otherwise we'll be all
That
growing
would be
old by
okay.
the time we go through the special ones.
I mean, I'm thinking of Yoda right now. Line from Yoda: "I'm too old to begin the training."
Yeah.
No, you're never too old to learn, Tom.
So I would like somebody to make a recommendation that it's every 6 weeks, and that we get a list in advance to order by preference what the trainings could be, so that for those that might have to front end because we're coming to the summer and people aren't around, they can do the ones that are.
Yeah, maybe we could, each of us could rate what's being proposed as 1, 2, 3, our first, second, and third choice, and then you'd get an instant idea of what might
And
be
it cannot be
most
Thursday
popular.
night. It cannot be Thursday night. It cannot be Monday night, probably because of other committees I'm on. And
They're talking about Tuesday night.
Yeah, it cannot be during the business day. I've already got one committee who's doing that, and it's driving me nuts. But
I know. I'm thinking we're going to do 5 to 7. That's what we're thinking.
On Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays. I think that's a.
5 to 7 Tuesday. Yeah, that's already. You guys already said that.
30.
can't be Thursday.
All right.
Definitely
So
not Friday or Saturday.
Paul Clear, what was that?
5 to 6:30, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it does sound like we have a day, we have an agreement, we have a spacing, so that's it. Let's end this conversation and move on.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. We will get working on that, and we will keep you updated as to how that is unfolding. And then next, that segues into our discussion about planning board goals for fiscal year 22. And I just wanted to quickly start off with an update as to some town hall updates, as well as sort of things that we'd like to identify from town staff to update in the next year. So first on the agenda is update our fee schedule. I'll just point out here that we have not updated our fee schedule since 2008. And what we're finding, there's a couple of instances. One is that our fees are just not adequate and on par with what the industry standards are right now. Right now, we use our peer review engineers that we contracted with through our RFP that went out in the summer of 2020. We have two. We have Amory Engineers and Weston and Sampson that we're contracted with for the next 3 years. Their prices were established in this RFP process, but essentially all of the 7 responses were pretty on par with one another. And what we are experiencing is that when we have these larger projects, for example, the harbor project, and we have a couple of other projects that we have to continuously go back and ask the applicant to bring their deposit up to at least 50%, because we are just running through the money, sort of quicker. And I think it would be helpful for us to take a look at our peer communities and look at what is sort of industry standard right now, so we can give an applicant a clearer picture of what their deposit initially will be to keep this as, exponential as possible. Jen, do you have anything to add?
You can call up like the Situate planner and the Hingham planners and say,
Right.
what are your deposits on various types?
Exactly.
Right.
And
And
then-
I think just by way of background for the membership that hasn't been on, is that they were updated in 2008, but that was also based on one engineer who did basically everything. And we are bringing in, with these larger projects, engineering firms that do a great deal of work looking at traffic, water, stormwater. So they're definitely more expensive than, say, Modulewski, who was here forever and at one
All right,
rate
well-
to do everything.
Why don't you guys survey the South Shore and then come back with some recommendations on new fee structure?
Okay.
Perfect. We will do that. Something
do that.
also, just to add to this, is that the topic of A&Rs is that we sort of informally run most of our A&Rs through council, but we don't charge a fee for that, whereas typically we charge the applicant for a legal cost for a special permit or a site plan review. And that's
Yeah.
something that we'd like to consider moving forward, that should be built into our fee schedule
Yep.
to allow a legal review on the applicant for an A&R.
That's important.
Okay, so
Great.
thank you very much. That's just a quick update on that. And then second on our agenda that we want to note is electronic permitting. We have been, and by we, I mean the town has been moving to electronic permitting for all of our inspectional services over the past few years. It takes a lot of back end working with the town and working with our vendor to make sure that these forms roll out and are, ready to use, that they interface with one another correctly. Something that's been on the docket for a long time, but has been sort of at the end of this takeoff, has been the planning and zoning board applications. But we're working right now with our IT department and with our IT vendor to be able to unroll this. And I think this will be really, it'll be a big step forward in terms of our town staff processing, in terms of, distributing, making sure people are getting notifications. These things will happen automatically now in this new system. And then in addition, there'll be, we're working on a level of visibility for the public so that people can go in and look, and all of these permits sort of cross communicate. You can look up one site and see the building permit, the septic systems, the Board of Health permits, etc. It's all in one place. Whereas right now, all of our paperwork is paper and an email submission. We don't have an electronic portal for our permitting applications. So that's something that we are working to unroll. It's going to take some time, but we're really looking forward to rolling that out over the next year. And I think that'll benefit town staff, the members of the board, as well as the public. So that's just something that we just wanted to let you know that we're working on.
I think that's a tremendous opportunity to avoid the silos that all these boards have been operating under for decades. The more cross communication, I think on any particular project, the better. And shame on the applicants that give the minimum information to each board based on their jurisdiction.
Okay,
Uh,
Tom
because
Callahan. Sorry, Clark.
Because we
No,
would
let
be able
Clark
to
finish.
cross-reference those things, and there could be plenty of oh by the ways and surprises.
Right, thank you. Tom?
well, to Clark's point, long time in the 90s on the Conservation Commission, we had an applicant who just very baldly submitted 2 separate plans to 2 separate boards. And in the Cohasset Wetlands regulations, there's a rule called I won't say the person's name, but it's the person's name rule that was designed to not let that happen, that everybody submit the same package to every board. You know, a year ago, Amy and I had a discussion, you know, the fallout from 580 and the Jerusalem and the lack of communication and things. You know, Amy and I had a discussion with Chris about setting up not just, you know, the electronic thing is great, but setting up actual procedures where staff in town hall talks to each other and knows what every other board is doing. And the central person for that is probably John Hallen, but I don't know, you know, and I know the conservation agent now is changing from what I understand. I don't know, Jen and Lauren, maybe you could tell us, is there anything going on organizationally in town hall to ensure that the land use boards all know what each of the other one is doing?
I will say, I'll let Jen add to this in a minute, but I will say absolutely. We've seen, it has been a dynamic period in town hall. There's been a lot of sort of changeover and change in policy, as well as the way that we work, because we all had been remote for so long and now we're back in town hall. We're seeing with John Hallen as the building inspector, as well as the director of the planning, permits and inspections department, we're convening bi-weekly. Again, we're resuming bi-weekly meetings with all of our planning, permits and inspection staff. We go around and sort of, you know, we all hear what is coming down the pipeline, so we all have an idea. Something that we do with all of our applications to begin with is disseminate, you know, to the fire, board of health, all of the different sort of boards for their comment. But now that we're sort of making sure that we're checking in 2 weeks in person, it's just another opportunity for follow-up with this. And then something else that, you know, that's a benefit of having John on board is that we're really sort of reinforcing and trying to re-educate the roles. And that, you know, using John as the sort of starting point, anytime someone comes into town who is looking to do something with a building permit or needs to go before a board, they start with a conversation in the building department and they sort of get directed as to where they need to go and when. You know, we can do our best as town staff and as officials to advise people on what to do, but within the limits of, you know, our boundaries and jurisdiction, there's only so much we can do. Sometimes if they want to have the authority, you know, if they want to make an application to go before a board and haven't pulled a permit, you know, when the time comes to get their building permit, it will catch up and they'll get to that point. But, you know, with that said, we do our best to encourage them to go in a particular order that is most efficient and makes most sense. Because at the end of the day, we don't want anybody wasting their time and resources, whether it's, you know, residents, applicants, town staff, and elected and appointed officials. So we are working on educating the public and members who come in that way. And I think I'd like to say that John Hallen has been a great leader and has been making a lot of great policy implementations as we move through this. And I'll ask if Jen has things to add.
Right. I completely agree with everything that Lauren has said. And by way of history too, we always have cross-reference with other departments. My zoning, you know, the zoning applications get distributed to all of the boards that fall under the planning permitting umbrella. The building, one of the biggest steps into that was the rollout of electronic permitting, which I was fortunate to be able to be part of in 2017, where we rolled it out. And, you know, that's a trial and error when you start sending out, but as anything is submitted, email, you check off, and all of the departments, including water, sewer, et cetera, are sent items about projects. And we have been doing that for years. Rolled it out in 2007 electronically, rolled through the bumps. But I'm always here for the historical reference and that, you know, that we did that, we made changes, we've changed staff. We had, you know, we had a bad issue with 580, but I don't feel that that should be the history that we look at, because we have had many successful, and we also communicated quite a bit ahead of time. And then, of course, the global pandemic, which threw everybody for a loop, and we did lose, obviously, you know, communication through that. So we're just excited to all work together and roll out this planning and permitting module, because I think it's going to make a world of difference, and it's the missing piece in the land use area. Board of Health has rolled out, and that rollout was also put in order by IT. So it was building, Board of Health than us. So we're thrilled that I think it's really going to make a difference for everybody. And I really do feel John Hallen is going to make a big difference leading us, and the constant communication is a breath of fresh air. So we're very happy about that. And I think that you'll feel it as well.
So did you mention that every 3 weeks, the chairs of the boards are meeting to discuss specific issues so that we all are operating at that level with the same information?
Right.
So
So,
you're doing that, you're meeting with John, correct?
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
I did
so
not
John,
know.
Yeah.
John Hallen has also been convening meetings with the chairs of Conservation Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and our Planning Board to sort of regularly meet and have open lines of communication on different matters that will come before the various boards. As we know, it's not every application comes before every board, but there is a lot of overlap very frequently.
Right.
And what we want to avoid is having something going down a board, which really should be going to another board first, so that, as Clark was asking me a couple of days ago, why were we looking in this when it has to go someplace else? So what we're trying to do is to work together to get a process so that it is going in the right direction at the right time. And to the extent that information is generated during those conversations, as chair, I will bring it back to you. If it's all just procedure of, this, that, and thing else, we'll probably consolidate it and present it in different buckets.
I think my comment was, why are we doing a large home review if there's zoning issues?
Yeah, right. That is exactly what you said.
Nothing in particular, no specific project.
No case, just the comment of the stuff.
Don't worry about large home review.
That's what it's
We have
actually
large home review now.
right.
If you're saying you want to get rid of it, that's okay. But we still have to deal with it.
Oh, I know.
But it was an example.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually have one that's been before zoning, a special permit that's been on for 4 or 5 months. And it was clear that they had to come in and bid off more than they can chew, building too much within the setback. They're going back. And now they might have to come for a large home review. But to me, that's the right area. Like, come get your zoning issues sussed out before you come to the planning board for a large home review.
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
Well, yeah, and if we do a comprehensive set of rules and regulations, this will all be laid out on paper for people to read, so.
So are we jumping to that next? Because I just want to make a comment on that if Lauren, after Lauren.
I just wanted to add, just to pick up what Tom just said, something also that I've identified to Jen, I've been saying since I've been here, I said, why do we have separate rules and regulations for every single application that we have? It should be one document that's rules and regulations with chapters as to specifics. That is something that I have identified. I'm happy to work. If I'm sure Tom's already working on that.
No,
I'm happy to work on that as well.
Let me tell you this gets into our goals and objectives, and this is where the zoning working group, which is essentially supposed to be a subcommittee for us and a place to hash out everything. We're doing a lot of stuff, and that'll probably impact what our goals and objectives are. But in the zoning working group, Woody's brought it up. I think he brought it up first, and I agree with him. Everybody agrees with him that the zoning bylaw, there's pages and pages of the zoning bylaw that's filled with crap about what you have to submit in an application on a given special, there's a general special permit one, a special general variance things. And then in a lot of these bylaws that have been added over the years, there's other special, please submit so many plans that say this, 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 and this. So in a draft of a completely new bylaw that I have put together, that's all pulled out. So, but right now in its form as a rules and regulations booklet, it's just all the current stuff we have. What has to be done is not just pulling out the current stuff and just putting it in a different book, is going through what we do for each of our permit applications and what is it we really need to have an applicant submit to us. And we need to look at the substance of them and rewrite the substance of them as needed. Again, there's the general filing requirements for a special permit and a site plan review. Well, okay, so then in a particular part of town, do we need something special and extra on top of that? we need to go through that with a fine tooth comb. So all the rules and regulations and application kind of crap has now been separated out into this other booklet. If somebody wants to start taking on the substance of what it is we should be asking for in each of these processes, by all means, I'll give you that draft and knock yourself out and rewrite it. But
Could I have a copy of that draft? Because I would love to do some
yeah,
editing.
I have to tell you, the whole thing. So on the zoning working group, we have long-term, short-term, mid-term, and long-term objectives, and we've been dealing with it very piecemeal, piece by piece. A couple of us have talked about how the zoning bylaw is full of a lot of junk, duplicative stuff, conflicting stuff, because bylaws, like any of the bylaws in the teens, articles 14 to 22 have been grafted on over the years, sometimes without looking at how it integrates into the old part of the bylaw. So there's a lot of junk, and there's the thought about rewriting the whole thing, and I took a crack at it. And after we get to this town meeting and we start doing our next items of the bylaw, I want to get them thinking in terms of where it fits in the text, not just in the abstract. But Katie Dugan had asked me not to circulate that yet to the planning board. Paul's on the zoning working group. He's seen it. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with her. And at some point, if we're going to rewrite the zoning bylaw or even just parts of it, you guys all have to see it. You're going to have to vet it and approve it. So I'll share what anybody wants. But I think, as we go into our goals, I think what I want to next say is, where the zoning working group is at the moment, what's coming down the pike for the fall, because all of a sudden more stuff has been discussed to be proposed at fall town meeting. So whenever you're ready for that. But if anybody wants to see what I've been cooking up with my spare time, you're welcome to see it. But
I do.
The rules and regulations part, we really need to say, somebody needs to start looking at what do we want, what do we need to change in the existing. So the existing is all isolated now for you to look at. Then, we need to think about what we need to do to change it.
So Jen would like
by the way, the rules and regulations in this document that I put together is all the land use boards. They're all in one spot. So, where we can coordinate between boards and, about who goes first. Every board probably has in its regulations somewhere that, well, we won't make a decision until this other board makes a decision. Well, Concom has the same thing. We won't make a decision until planning and zoning make their decision, We got to get through all that, and there has to be an order of doing things. So I'll share it with whoever wants it.
All right, so thank you. Jen would like to say something?
So just to come off of what Tom is saying. So I'm part of the zoning bylaw working group too, and I know that Katie did ask that, but I think the rules and regulations we should parcel out and keep separate and let staff take that, and then Tom and you guys can do the heavy lifting on the zoning bylaw. The reason I say that is we, way a long time ago, and I hate to say how long I did it ago, but it was in 2008, Woody and I rewrote with the help of Ben Lacy, the rules and regulations. We updated them for the zoning board. They need another update. And basically it's taken out of the chapter, the zoning act, and then we add our rules and regulations to that. And so I like having the zoning board having its own, but it doesn't mean it can't go into one same location and
right. And my document does not have any special rules and regulations the zoning board has, because I didn't even know they exist or where I could find them. Right. I just what I have right now is pulled out all the junk that's in the zoning bylaw itself that has to do with submission materials, applications, notices for hearings, that kind of crap.
So what I would recommend, and just Tom, they're right on the zoning board website, but I can always send them to you as well. But
yeah, that's right. I didn't look.
Yeah, they're a little outdated. I'm not gonna lie, because 2008.
I have a lot of time, but not that much time.
Right. So I think if Tom, you could send that information, which you've parceled out of what exists, to Lauren and I know we have everything up on the website, but we have it also in binders, and we know what exists, and we take that and we make that the planning board's rules and regulations package. I think that's going to make a big difference for everybody. And
I'll send it to you when this meeting's over. So.
All right, we have no problem taking that on. I think it will help everybody. So if that works for everybody.
Something I just want to flag is that I was looking at other communities and sort of their packages of rules and regulations in one comprehensive book and trying to look at good examples. And Canton has some excellent examples. So I just want to, if anybody wants to take a look and feels like nerding out like I was.
We are a bunch of nerds because I'm so excited for this stuff.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of copying and not reinventing the wheel. You know?
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
I have no pride of authorship. I'll steal from anybody. You know? As a matter of fact, a lot of the bylaws we're bringing forward over the years that came out of the '04 master plan were heavily borrowed from someplace else. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Good.
So in this conversation is wandering too much for me. I would like us to have a structure here and have an objective. So we can't solve everything and we can't say everything. So why don't we try to think about one or two areas to chew over a little bit and then say we're going to work on them. So I know for a fact that if Eric were here, he would say it sure would be nice if we could just do some planning, right? Not hearing large house reviews, not hearing other extraneous things. And so what about that? Do we want to actually take on just a minute, Tom, just a minute.
All right, well, it's being done, Amy, and I.
What do you mean it's being done?
If you let me just get to it, I'll tell you how it's being. The zoning working group is engaging in what you would call planning. There is an immense amount of research being done to back up and support every proposed change we're making. There's a couple of people, Cassie Rosano and Katie and others have dug into so much stuff. The research, the kind of things, you know, we're talking about changing dimensional regulations in the town. We're researching all of this. That's what this board is supposed to do, but this board doesn't have the time to do, which is why the zoning working group exists. If I could explain where it is, you might understand what.
Well, I stay in touch with Katie, so I kind of feel.
I know you do.
Right, but even with that, if that's true, then one thing we could recommend now is that we need to have a regular update from Katie that gives us where you are on the things that you're doing.
Well, Paul and I are on that committee.
I understand that, but just as an example, the presentation that she did on the large house review analysis between she and Cassie, they would be the right people to do that since they wrote the material.
Okay, that's fine. I understand we're scheduling a meeting with the zoning working group soon anyway, aren't we?
We are. We have it tentatively scheduled on our May 26th agenda.
But the work that we're doing on that committee is important enough that Paul, you know, at minimum, Paul and I, as members of that committee, should update us at every one of our meetings. It should be the last thing on our agenda every night that we meet, because we are meeting on that group every 2 weeks. So it's a constant moving forward kind of thing. We're not stuck in stone. We're not having problems getting quorums. We are really moving in a bold way. And so I think it's important that Paul and I, at minimum, update you. And if you need Katie's level to come in, that's fine. And I guess that's coming up next week or 2 weeks, whenever. But if I may tell you where we are at the moment, it might shape how our goals and objectives are.
Go ahead.
All right. So Jen, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that we do keep that update, so it's going to stay it's in our admin section at the bottom of the agenda.
Okay.
So
All
it's
right.
boilerplate, so it's there. And not for nothing, but I'm part of that committee too, and I help with the data collection. So
Yes,
don't
you
forget
do.
about me, Tom.
No, I apologize. Everybody's doing everybody on that committee is doing yeoman's work at the moment.
But yeah, especially you, Katie. But
anyway, so we know what the articles are that are coming forward for this town meeting. Right now, the next focus, and in large part because of the moving parts of property ownership in the harbor, is we are looking at the redo of the zoning in the harbor. We will likely have proposals for that for the fall. The two things we are looking at in the harbor in particular is the height limitation, Because as we learned from the HVBOD project, it is our current 35-foot height above base flood elevation, which I believe at that site was either 8 or 10, so it was higher than 35 feet from the ground or from sea level. The definition of height, we're going to probably be proposing a change for that so that it's no longer on a peaked roof measured at the midpoint of a peaked roof, but at the peak of a peaked roof. But in concert with that change in the harbor, we are discussing a change in the height limit in the harbor commercial properties, however they're going to be called in the future. Right now, that would be waterfront business, downtown business, the remaining little downtown business and light industry that exists there today. And the prospect that when you consider base flood elevation, that you could potentially have a 50-foot high building is not something anybody on the committee seems to be in favor of. So the question is, do we have a maximum height above sea level? Do we say it's 25 feet above base flood elevation? Or, you know, so we're talking about the numbers right now. So if members of this board have some thoughts on what that should be, or whether even we should be going in this direction, but I will tell you it's the consensus of the zoning working group to go in this direction. That's something we are immediately doing. Now, on the rest of the zoning, we're looking at the uses. Like I said, right now we have waterfront business. We have the HVBOD that only covers the properties that we permitted. We have 2, 3 addresses on Elm Street that still remain in downtown business. And then we have a light industry parcel at the end of Parker Ave, the marina. So we are looking at 2 different approaches at the moment. One approach that I'm proposing is a master district with sub-districts within it that will do very targeted uses on particular pieces of property. It would also take current non-conforming uses like the yacht club and make them conforming. I have been asked to wait till after town meeting to get Paul DeRentz's opinion on whether we can do that approach. The other approach is to follow similar to what we have now, is just call everything, it wouldn't be waterfront business, it might just be called harbor. But then again, redesigning the uses that are allowed down there to tailor them to what we want and to tailor them to what is realistic. There are uses allowed in the harbor that you're never going to see. We discussed that the other day at our Monday at our meeting, that you're never going to see manufacturing. We'd like to see a boatyard, but there's some uses that are allowed there that we're never going to see anymore. Mixed use is probably going to be a way, you know, a reality that we have to face, that there'll be more down there, but we're working on targeting the uses. So input from this board on that topic would be very helpful, because the harbor, because of the moving parts of ownership down there, is a focus for us right now. And we're talking about the area from the Bellarmine House all the way around to Parker Avenue on the water side, with the exception of Elm Street, where there's commercial properties on the land side of Elm Street. There was some discussion Monday about perhaps looking at the residential zoning on the land side of Border Street as well. The consensus seems to be to keep the 49 Margin Street as a residentially zoned property. It's currently RC. The Bellarmine House is RC. So those are the things we're working on, and now accelerating that to a possible target of coming forward in the fall. So any input on that would be great. And if people think the harbor does not need to be a focus and a goal, then let's discuss that. But that's one the zoning working group is on. The other main thing we are working on at the moment is looking at the table of area regulations. And in connection with large home review and the size of houses, is tightening up our regulations on the bulk and mass of a house in the 3 residential districts, We seem to have come to a consensus that that would be done by a regulation on gross floor area, which will be defined a certain way of what it includes in the house, as opposed to FAR. We pretty much are at the consensus that FAR, floor area ratio, should stay to the commercial properties, and the residential properties should be regulated by gross floor area. Another part of that proposal is to switch our lot coverage for the main building, which is currently 20%, down to 15%, which Duxbury has. And the data that Cassie and Katie have come up with says that we have very few properties in town that actually go to 20% of lot coverage for the main building. We may be seeing that on some new projects of people trying to maximize the size of the house they can get on the lot in some recent projects. But the overall average way Cohasset has developed since the last zoning change in 1986 was that we are probably around that 15% average. So we are thinking of coming forward in the fall with reducing a lot coverage piece. Now, I wrote the whole bylaw over because I'm not a fan of this piece by piece approach, but this might be the way we do it. But harbor, priority 1A, priority 1B is to spot on deal with the issue of house size and bulk through a combination of changing lot coverage and creating a measurement of gross floor area.
Will the gross floor area measurement include basements?
I would have to look it up of what I put in the definition, but yes, probably.
Because that, I mean,
Or at
that's
least
really, I mean, you know, the town is losing money by not.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly like a basement like mine that opens to grade in the back. You know, it's not, you can't see it in the front, but you have opens, yeah, those, yeah, we're playing with that definition. Now, the gross floor area change may not come till the spring, but we are, that is where we're focusing our attention. And within a change to gross floor area, depending on where we set that limit in RA, RB, RC, and maybe even create an RD, we may not need large home review anymore. Large home review would only come because the gross floor area would be the new as of right limit. And if you exceed an as of right limit, you need a variance. Now, there's a thought that I have that if desired, and again, it depends on where we set these gross floor area numbers. Let's say something was 80% of the allowed gross floor area. Do we want to put that through a large home review special permit process? That the houses at the high end of what is allowed as of right still need an extra layer of review. I mean, that's an idea, but I think if we pick the right number for gross floor area, we won't need large home review. We'll have a workable limit that will give citizens and property owners the right to build a decent sized house. And then anything that they would want that exceeds that would have to go through the variance process. Again, Katie and Cassie's data has come up with what is the current median gross floor area in the 3 districts. If I recall correctly, it's in the high 2s in RA, it's in the mid 3s in RB, and it's about 5,200 or maybe a little under 5,000 in RC. However, Jen's data coming about the large home applications is showing that in the last 20 years, the trend is definitely upward and it's starting to skew the median upward. We are seeing bigger houses. So the input for that right now would be, after you look at Katie and Cassie's data on what the averages are at the moment, what is the appropriate gross floor area limit we should be setting in RA, RB, and RC? And, you know, again, since on the planning board for in terms of our goals and objectives, I think we should be prioritizing that just as much as the zoning working group is, because it is that issue, it seems to me, that we are confronting more and more, is the size and objections in the community to the size of some houses we're seeing.
I think, you know, you've been talking for a while. I just wanted to interrupt
Yeah,
you
I'm sorry.
and say, no, it's good. It's good. But, you know, I think with the zoning changes and density and, you know, sort of like, see what always seems like, um, the town coffers get filled with more McMansions. You know, it seems like there's a whole lot of sort of interests and conflicts of interest and agendas that influence how we're changing over time. You know, again, in 1990, we were the state average in household income, and now we're like 3 times the state average. How these things happen, you know, these general trends and what our vision of the future is can be expressed in zoning and house size and limitations on house size. But I still think it's really important that you don't drill down on the details to the finer extent where you're like, it has to be 15%. You know, that's it, without kind of casting a wide net on how these things work. And, you know, I mean, as an architect, I have a pretty good idea of what you can do and what you can't do based on how the zoning is set up.
Well, eventually we have to set a number in the zoning bylaw. If we intend to make change, we could just say that what's going on in Cohasset now under the current bylaw is fine, just let it go. But
Well, I mean, it used to be that the zoning was done by lack of sewerage.
yeah,
And,
well,
and we don't have
can't
that
do
so much anymore.
Correct. I've been screaming that for 30 years, that we've
Yeah.
been zoning by sewer
I know.
policy.
But all I'm suggesting is to cast a wide net on how those things kind of work themselves out. Scenario
Well,
planning, maybe.
So,
how that works.
this conversation, this first conversation is not to try to solve things right now, but to make a list of things
What are your goals?
that are, and what would we consider a set of goals? And then how do we think we would approach achieving them? So let's stay out of the details.
But the problem is,
16.7%.
the problem is, Amy, that the zoning working group is beyond just abstract goals, and we are looking to develop concrete.
I understand, but we are the planning board, and the master plan implement. I know, but wait a minute. The master plan implementation committee is not a planning body. We are the planners. So what I think we ought to try to figure out is, we're really lucky to have a very effective implementation committee. It's rare that actually emerges. But with that said, we have a mingled purview. And the question is, what does this board want to say will be its goals for the next year? And it can't be more than 3. What would that be?
I don't know.
You know what Tom's goals are, but
it's not a question, Clark. It's not a question of my goals. It's a question.
No, don't take it personally. Tom's expressed goals.
The whole
end of story.
purpose,
Whether the Tom's or his committee or what.
This whole purpose of the zoning working group and the master plan implementation committee was to do the dirty behind the scenes legwork and research that's needed, that this board does not have the time for now and has not had the time for in the 35 years I've lived in this community.
But at the same time, Tom, we should be. So Katie moved topics out of the master plan that had an immediate 6 month, a year, and beyond time frame. We ourselves, as the planning board, can have a parallel set of goals that are complementary to what's going on the implementation committee basis, but also looking larger. Just as an example, we never talk about water and water supply. We don't talk about infrastructure and what does that mean. I mean, there's things that planners talk about that more than there's the level of figuring out implementation, but there's the philosophy around how do we want this town to ultimately evolve. That's what a planner's supposed to do.
Okay, well.
Right, how you get from here to there.
Yeah, and what
I
is it that you
understand that, and don't think that other implications of zoning change and population growth have not been discussed and thought about.
No doubt. But do we have time?
Yeah,
do we have
I mean-
time to go back and forth on this anymore. I'd like to. I think my kids are asleep, but I'd like to beg off for tonight's conversation unless somebody else has something to bring up that's a new goal that hasn't been articulated already.
All I want to say is that the reason there's two of us on the zoning working group is to have the integration between what they're doing on implementation and what we're doing on overall policy. We need, if you think myself personally or Paul are going off the deep end with the zoning working group, then we need to have these discussions like we're having.
I don't think anyone's going off the deep end, but we're talking generally about goals. This is like a mile-high conversation.
Right, and we're too far into
on density, on
sometimes you
zoning
have to
laws.
come, at some point.
I'd
you
like
have
to hear
come down
what
from
some other
mile
people's
high and-
goals are. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
Paul, Grady?
Well, this has been a very nice zoning board subgroup meeting. But to me, it's the planning board. We're spending a lot of time. It's been a lot of wind, and Tom, appreciate what you do. But we're the planning board. My goal is a new election this year, change some leadership. Also to see the planning board give it a little more leeway in what we can and cannot do, have the town grow some teeth. I mean, we're a bloody town of 7,000 people, and we're talking like we're a city of 3 million. So just forgive me my frustration, but what I'd like to see is Cohasset not be a dumping ground for every single engineer, builder who buys a piece of land and is able to put up whatever they want. That's my goal for Cohasset. That's my reason for getting on the planning board. It's as simple as that. So those are my goals.
Hey, just to change the subject, I did get my papers in and my 50 signatures on the ballot for re-election, and I'm unopposed again.
Congratulations.
Fourth time.
You're an asset.
Unless somebody can launch a write-in campaign, I'm not going to print out any posters to put around town.
We'll
Clark,
be.
I can say something. I hope for one, you get reelected, you stay on the board. You're an asset. I mean that.
Okay, thanks.
So do I.
You're welcome.
So, but let's take Paul Grady's goal and turn it into something that we would use as a basis for planning. So if what you're saying is that there's a better process whereby the town evolves, then how do we want to approach that? I will say that the discussion about the master plan implementation committee, that's old business in terms of the town not having stayed up with the functions that it was supposed to have updated on an ongoing basis. So a lot of the work that's going on is to essentially catch us up to a point where we can start to manage. So we're building the managing infrastructure that we didn't have. With that said, it sounds like you have a goal. Can you articulate it in a way that we can actually work on a planning basis to achieve?
Then I think that working with Tom, because I respect what he does, is coming up with something that we can add to lists for town meeting or however the system operates. Again, Cohasset's been known for a long time as a joke. You can build anything that you want within reason. And I know people say, but look at 580. I'm glad we have a new town planner. I think that the planning board ought to have some teeth. Instead of taking the blame for everything that goes wrong in this town, I think it's been fantastic that the board stepped up to some of the other projects recently. I'd like to see more of that.
So what you just basically said is the planning board needs more authority. We need to make it very clear to ourselves what level of authority we have, and then utilize it in a systematic manner as planning issues come before us.
Yes, in a way that's fair to the town, also fair to the person that buys the property or does something, but is also fair to the town and protects the future of this town. And, you know, like I've written it before, the intrinsic beauty of Cohasset, it's going to go away. That I could see. And I do appreciate, Tom, your work on the harbor. And
No,
things like that. But there are other areas in town besides the harbor. I'm going to say that.
Paul, that's why I wrote a comprehensive rewrite of the whole bylaw, because we have to deal with it all. Everything is interconnected. And I'm not looking for personal praise, but I as a lawyer, and I think what I offer here as a lawyer is to tell you that we can't stop development. We can regulate it, but we can't stop it.
No
And
one's
we
trying to
have,
stop.
and we've already been this discussion that came up at 580. The planning board, as a board, has no independent enforcement authority. And it very well may be that although I've written a bylaw to give it to us, that state law prevents us from taking that authority. And it needs a grammar expert, because the particular statute has a series of phrases separated by commas, and however you interpret those commas decides whether a planning board, and a zoning board, by the way, could have its own independent enforcement authority. It may very well be that under state law, we have to rely on the building inspector, period. And when we have a good one, great. When we don't, we're up the creek without a paddle.
Then the building inspector should be held to account.
Well, or I think what basically putting both of your comments together, we need to explore what it is that the planning board can do and the level of authority that the planning board can exert.
That comes back to training.
Training's not a bad idea, Lauren, but
It's full circle.
Tom, I'll put
Yes,
it this way.
it is.
We should be able to police the policeman then. All right. In other words, we should be able to hold the town planner to, not planner, I'm sorry, Lauren.
Building inspector.
Building inspector, thank you very much. To accountability. All right, that's what I'm getting at. That's where the planning board should have some teeth, or something like that. I don't think we're violating state law by anything like that. There's other towns that have planning boards that are a hell of a lot tougher than we are. And so I've done some legwork on that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And training is important too, is to allow us to know what we can do within the limits of the law that exists, because we probably don't exercise all the authority we could. But I'm just trying to remind everybody that state law provides some limits on us that we just have to accept and live with. I mean, remember the discussion of 580 and that change to the enforcement bylaw that I wrote. Our board's counsel has already said that she doesn't think that will fly. I would like to get Durensis' opinion on it too, but you know, until the Attorney General's office rules on a change, we don't actually know the answer. But we could, you know, there are limits to what we can do. I don't like the limits, but we need to.
So it's 8:55 and we've started a conversation about goals. There's one item on the table at this point, and that is to explore the extent to which the planning board can act with greater force and with greater influence within the confines of the state regulation. That's something that is what you're saying. So that's something we could explore. Another issue is the level of diversity of the activities. Like, you know, what about the downtown? Part of our purview is the downtown. What we need is to actually exercise a downtown planning process so that we can figure out what needs to be done and where we need to get the money from. To me, that having a downtown development plan would be a goal for the year. And that means the money has to be gotten by Chris. We need to have a professional who's an economic development professional, not somebody who's a broad-based planner. And then we need to sit down and define, what do we think the downtown ought to be like? What do we want it to be?
let me just say this. We changed the village zoning in 2007 to address an economic slowdown, a lack of redevelopment, a lack of anybody investing in their properties by allowing for mixed use. We didn't see a lot of projects for a long time. Now we've seen, well, where the ice cream stand used to be, now we're seeing Pleasant Street. A new one is in the works for the gas station. By the time with all due respect, by the time we finish studying this, projects under the existing bylaw will already be in the works, and half of the village will be different than it is today. So.
Well, and it's all going on its own, Tom, rather than actually having somebody say this is how it ought to go. And I'm just saying we should be steering. Just because you created a village district doesn't mean that that's being planned. That's just created the potential for something to happen.
I know, but I'm just saying that long-term study.
Why do you say long-term? It doesn't have to be long-term. We just did a master plan. And inside the master plan is sufficient detail. It's a different kind of analysis that needs to be done now. It's a storefront analysis as to what's there, what works, what doesn't, why, and what are you going to do about it?
Okay, I'm just saying that there are other projects that are going to come down the pike while you're studying this that is going to make it a fait accompli. That's all.
I'm going to say that's a double-edged sword. All right. That village zoning that you guys popped through, because you look at James Lane. So they took away a nice ice cream shop. You know something? Walk my dog, families and kids playing out there listening to music, gone. All right. There's progress for you. The guy wants to put up another farmhouse in the spot where JJ's or Strawberry Parfait or whatever you want to call it used to be. Gone. There's all in the way of progress. No, it's not. It's in the way of revenue. So I'm going to disagree with you there.
I'm not disagreeing with you that that's what happened, and I'm not disagreeing.
Happening at One Smith too. All right. That's just residential. It's a tax revenue and it's a profit-based thing. So I'm recused from that, so I can say something about the project. But all right, it's not bringing any vitalization to the community. It's bringing bodies, is what it is. Same as 7 James Lane. As a matter of fact, you took away something that was very nice over there. All right, that people.
But what can you do? But what do you do when the business owner no longer is in business? He no longer can run JJ's, wants to run JJ. It's not financially viable to run JJ's. What happens? I can just tell you that the zoning cannot be used to target uses on such a micro level that we could say this can only be an ice cream store for all time eternity. We can't do it.
But I'm saying.
But there's something between point specificity and the blue sky. And I think that's where we need to operate in terms of a specific village development plan that we have some steering for, because then you go out and you find the business.
That's where I agree with you. Every one of the changes down there Tom is proposing, what we're looking at, I'd say 10 years down the road, is driving down through the village, and the village is going to be a couple restaurants, maybe a bank. You might get lucky and have maybe 2 instead of 3 real estate shops, and then you're going to have condominiums all above it. That's what I see coming.
My vision isn't Weymouth Landing.
It's going to look like that. Well,
but I think that there's a fear that level of planning density is ugly.
It is, because that's what's planned for it.
Well, that's
no. I mean, we're nowhere near what they did in Weymouth Landing. But Jesus, that's what everybody wanted, and that's what they got. And fortunately, they can't do the same density here. But I think everyone's afraid that it's just going to be like millions of people, and
it's what it is.
So basically, so we have 2 goals now. We have the goal that Paul spoke about, which is how do we put more teeth into what we do in terms of planning. I'm putting in what are we going to do about creating a vibrant village, and that is a request that will require resources from town to actually get a professional to give us the options that we have in the short and the medium term to try to revitalize downtown. It's something we have to do. It will not happen on its own. It'll be chaotic. So that's the second goal. What's another goal that we have? Is there any goal between the relationship of 3A and the village? Do we have a goal about that? Right? Do we have a goal about, we're building affordable housing, but we're A, not building it fast enough, but B, more importantly, we're becoming less diverse by the minute because of the economic dynamic running the development of housing and new families that come here. If we want to be a diverse community, how are we going to do that?
We're
Right?
becoming a one-generational town, Amy, because what is being built? All right, so Cohasset.
So do we have, let's have one more possible goal for this year. We can't do more than 3 things, and chances are we'll only be able to do 1. What would be a third topic?
How about the sidewalks? Could I recommend the sidewalks as a matter of
Yes, that's a
goal
good one.
for the
That's a good
planning
one, Paul.
board?
I've almost given up on it, but they are still working on Sawyer Street and other spots. Lauren,
Well, here's the thing that maybe some of you know and some of you don't is that, and I apologize for the background noise. There's nothing I can do about that. I had to eat, so I had to come out, get out of the shelter that I was in. So that Avalon development that was up on 3A gave the town like $300,000, I don't know, 15 years ago. And it's just been sitting in an account like, what's going on? Let's make something happen. Let's do something, So Amy, if you want to add that as one of my top priorities, my only other top priority would be that I stay enthusiastic for this volunteer work that we all do here and thank the staff for all that they do. I mean, God, I just can't even imagine how much work that Jen and Lauren have done for all of us during Zoom. But if I could just maintain my own enthusiasm with all these different committees and such, that will be my personal goal for this coming year. So thank you all for all that you guys do. And we should, recognize that we're just volunteers here and we're doing the best we can. And sure, we all want to, make some change and do some things and hold people accountable. But, I think we should all recognize that we all do a lot and it shouldn't go unnoticed. So that's my 2 cents. I'm getting back to my dinner, but I'm here with you and I'm listening and I'm loving the discussion.
Okay, so thank you, Paul Caleri. So Paul Grady, you're going to close the meeting. It's 9 o'clock. We've been here and we're not going to get a whole lot further, but let's see what we can do to bring this together in some meaningful way.
Paul had a good point for that third goal, sidewalks on the town. But take a look at Hingham. Brick sidewalks for the scenic areas, some nice scenic gas lamps, short money to put them in. Bam, you're going to draw some people down. Christ almighty, decorate the town for Christmas or the holidays. I'm sorry, politically incorrect of me. Things like that. So the town gets involved. So the town shows it cares. That's a plus. Again, if you drive through downtown Hingham in the holidays, lit up, they've got the brick sidewalks, fake gas lamps, they're good to go. And that wasn't always there. But again,
that was proposed 25 years ago and shut down by a bunch of old-time townies who frittered away the money we got from the MBTA. I appreciate it. I think our downtown looks shabby. I think it needs to be fixed. And it may, but the other side of that is it may take new developers, new people coming in to build something new to improve it.
That's
everybody seems to want the gas station to go. I haven't heard one person defend the gas station or say something nice about the gas station. Okay, but then what's going to come there is going to be something quite different. And we have to be prepared to deal with that and or accept that change.
Well, and rather than have it be done to us, we should be planning for it.
Well, okay, I just like to know what form that's going to take, because the application for a project that property will probably be coming sooner than you think. And
So
we're
Tom, it's
already
not,
dealing with
so we made the house or the horse might be out of the barn on that one.
The
But
horse
that's
is out of the barn and so much in Cohasset because I've been talking about these issues for 30 years and the horse is way out of the barn.
Well,
You know what? I'm still here working to try to make some positive changes for the direction of this community. But
well,
you know,
and so even if the one horse is out of the barn, there's plenty of horses in the barn. So we've got 3 goals now. We've got advocacy for sidewalks, which is a whole set of questions that somebody has to bird dog for that to work. We have, how do we get the planning board to have more influence? And I think that's something that we can work on immediately. And then the third is we need to stress to the town manager that we need to actually have somebody responsible and competent to do a plan for the downtown economic development of the village. It won't happen on its own, and it will otherwise be piecemeal. So those are 3 fine goals to start with. And if we have more time at the end of the year, we can add another one. But I think 3 is about all we can do. And we have to figure out, I mean, the next step is to figure out how and what would we do?
well, I mean, it's good that you mentioned the phrase economic development with the village because that's the key to it. And you know, I went through this on the select board when we talked to businesses and, you know, what can we do in 3A? What can we do in the village? We have a lot of disadvantages based on our location, our lack of proximity to the highway, the lack of, you know, one of the arcs in the 360-degree circle is water and not a customer base. You know, the village is designed to.
But Tom, we don't want to talk about the details now. It's past
we
9.
have to talk about the details, okay?
No,
Because
we want to start, what we wanted to do was surface goals. The next step is to have meetings or a meeting to take one of them and talk about how we might approach them.
Okay, I'm just.
Okay?
All right.
I think we could drill down on the details when we as a team are prepared for
Well-
drilling down on the details. Not necessarily tonight.
Well, let me take one Pleasant as an example. Our zoning is allowing for mixed use. The first floor has to be commercial. Okay, zoning can't tell you what businesses locate there. Zoning can't help you. You just set what's allowed there, but you can't attract businesses. Now, I think in that particular case, Sheeran's already told us his old tenants will probably come back, so he may be okay. But for example, if the gas station does get redeveloped, they're going to have a big chunk of ground floor retail space that they need to fill. Now, the zoning can't tell them how to
Exactly,
fill it.
and that's why, that's why.
Problem than saying the village zoning is a problem. The village zoning is designed to preserve a commercial village, but we can't convince companies and people to locate their business.
The village plan is separate from economic development. They work together, but it's separate. But we haven't undertaken the economic development. That's something we need to do. Clark?
Yeah, do we have anything else on the agenda to cover? Do we need to talk about prep for our next meeting?
I just wanted to state, we have minutes to approve. It's the minutes from January 27th, 2021 and February 10th, 2021.
I move we approve the minutes of January 27th and February 10th.
Second.
Okay, roll call, Clark Brewer.
Aye.
Tom Callahan.
Aye.
Paul Cleary.
Paul Cleary, aye.
Paul Grady.
He's an aye.
Paul Grady. Amy Glassmeyer, aye, and we are all going to say aye for Paul. Paul Grady?
Paul Grady,
Okay,
aye.
okay, we got it. Okay, good. Anything else, Lauren?
No, that's all I have for now. Our next meeting, we have several continued hearings. I'll be in touch via email with updates as to those.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Clark.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a second?
Bye-bye.
Clark Brewer,
Aye.
Paul Caleri, Tom Callahan,
Aye.
Paul Grady,
All Grady, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye. Thank you all very much. We'll see each other in 2 weeks.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone. See
Lauren.
at
Thank
night.
you, Jen.
Good night.